All right, hi. This is Making Potions Blog 12, and we have so much to talk about, it's kind of embarrassing. As you can tell, I didn't do a video pre-GDC, and this is going to count as my post-GDC video, even though GDC was a little while ago. Things have been in a complete whirlwind since GDC in all the right ways. So that's good. Woo! Let's talk about what I did to prep for GDC, aside from having wonderful business cards. Yes. Are they not beautiful? Um, I, yeah, they're even shiny. I made sure that my website was updated. That involved some decent work that was programming not towards the game. That also involved making press kits. Press kits are really helpful, and you can use the press kit that's created by Vlambert and is free to use. It's fairly simple to set up. And the benefit of it is it's become kind of the new standard for interacting with the press, and press really like having it. So press kits, highly recommended. So I set up my press kit for Stumbling Cat and my press kit for Potions itself, which took more time than I was expecting, but hey, still got all that in there. It's up on the website, fairly easy to update now that it exists. And that kind of like ate up all my time before GDC. GDC itself was really great. I made a lot of new connections, had a really good time. Didn't have anyone throw money at me, but then again, I realized that getting funding pre-product involves sort of sacrificing a lot of your company, or at least control of your company, and can be really risky. And I'm really passionate about my company, and I'm really passionate about Potions itself, so I want to make sure that I can stay in the driver's seat, make sure it goes the right path, at least what I think is the right path. Anyway, through GDC, I got this gigantic stack of which I unfortunately have not followed up on yet, and I really, really need to. That's certainly on my to-do list. And then post GDC, I really buckled down, and for the first time, I got all the members of my team together and communicating with each other. Previously, I had been talking to each of them separately and assigning them tasks separately, and I combined them together, and they all worked really well together. They love discussing the design. They've come up with some amazing ideas. It's really nice to sort of foster that creative environment. So in that regard, I tried to get some tools to help with that creative environment. The two that I implemented were Slack, which is a communications platform that you can set up channels and share media, and that has been absolutely amazing and extremely popular. And we use it every day, and it's our main form of communication now. We do have Skype meetings on Mondays. And then the other thing that I set up is Trello. And Trello is good for tracking tasks, but since everyone's so active in Slack, and since Slack has different categories divided up, so I have like, let's see, what are my categories? I have art, audio, code, design resources, gameplay, general, Kickstarter resources, potion ideas, random source, story, and then I have automatic ones that get posted to, which are the Trello and the Twitter. A lot of categories. Since there are so many categories, Trello itself is not really being used by anyone, and I don't want to force people to use it because I don't think it's really necessary, at least at this point in development. However, I have encouraged people on my team that when they run into a bug in the code to make a, or not a bug in the code, a bug in the game, to make a Trello task and assign it to me, because that's a little easier to share. And we have a lot of night owls on the team, so it is not uncommon for people to be working past 4 a.m., which is a little beyond my bedtime, unfortunately. So that's going to help with communication there. We'll see if the team really adapts to using Trello or not. No big deal if they don't. It's really fine. So, aside from that, let me go back to my and not let my headset turn off. I have done a ton of work on the game. In fact, I've done so much work on the game that I was told that you guys might not recognize it. So we'll see. We'll see if that is the case. Let me open it up here. Unfortunately, it's switched scenes. Um, so I put in wonderful environmental art from my environmental artist Jake, and wonderful animations from my animator Wesley. So let's switch over to Unity here. Ta-da! Oh, look at this. You guys are probably like, what is this game? I recognize that girl, but what is the rest of these? And I will tell you. So, in regards to the design of the previous level, I thought that the level itself was poorly designed. There was definitely too many open areas, but I think I sorely was misunderstanding how the game will actually feel when being played. So I designed this new level a little bit more closed, but of course it still has this fairly large open area, but it has physical obstacles within that area, and it has monsters, and it definitely, this game right here, this has what? 5 mushrooms and 2 spiders. Yes, spiders. It feels really dangerous. In fact, I wouldn't say this is a balanced level because this level will just kick your butt. I was just doing this more to try out things. So the first thing that I implemented were the mushroom animations. So if I go over to this new mushroom, you'll see we have, again, the shadow and the sprite controlled separately as usual, the health bar, and then we have an additional thing which is an attack effect and is currently disabled. The attack effect on the mushroom itself has its own collider. Let's go over here. And the collider, if we enable it, actually is the area of attack that the mushroom makes when it attacks. So it can attack mostly in front of it, a little below, a little above. I also implemented a new method of how the monsters attack. So they no longer, before they would run up to you until they were colliding with you. That's no longer the case. Now we have several different ranges. We have the preferred range, which is how close the monster wants to get to the girl. This is the shortest range generally. So if it has a preferred range of 5, it'll run up to 5 away. Most things have a preferred range of about 1 or so, so they will be like really close to her. Outside of that preferred range, or so if we have the monster, we have the preferred range, and then outside of that we have the trigger range, and the trigger range is what acts as the new collider for it, like how close you get before it starts to attack. So if we see the mushroom mob here, we have 2 colliders. We have the center collider, which is the collider for interactions, like hitting the mushroom mob itself, and then we have this outer collider, and this outer collider is actually a trigger, and that's how I can refer to them separately. So if you get within the trigger range, then the mushroom starts attacking, and then, as we saw before, this attack range, the attack effect, that's enabled, come on. Oh yeah, there's this collider. So the attack effect range is outside of the trigger range. So that means if you get in and you hit the trigger and you start running away, it could still hit you. And that's just so that dodging an attack doesn't mean moving 1 pixel back by every time something starts swinging. Like once something starts attacking, you are definitely in its attack range. And I think it has a really good feel. So let's disable this attack again, and I'll show you what this feels like. Oh, additionally, in the adding the different types of attacks, I also added a global cooldown, and now monsters cannot move during their global cooldown. So, through animations, change the attack around a lot. No, spider, go away. So here we go, and we'll see this attack range. Wow, that's spawning spiders right now. Okay. So, there you go. You can see things when they start swinging. If it starts swinging, I can move away from it. Yep. If I wait again, start swinging. Oh. So that's how that's working thus far. And I think you noticed that I have animations. So the animations are implemented much like implemented the animations uh, on my girl. However, one of the things I did do was I upgraded to Unity 5. Now that might seem like a big thing from Unity 4.6. It seriously took me the download and install time of Unity 5, and then opening up the project and saying, yes, I have a copy saved. Please attempt to like make it Unity 5 compatible. Waited like 2 minutes, and then bam, it was Unity 5 compatible. I forgot to close Visual Studio, so Visual Studio was grumpy, and there was one bug there, but it was solved by closing Visual Studio and reopening it. So overall, Unity 5 upgrade basically took no effort. I think that it did change that was noticeable to me is that if we go into the animator here, we now have an entry state and we could have an exit state as well. Wesley, my animator, set this up and he set it up to have a base layer of idle, walk, and run, so something can be in one of those animations at all times. And then it has a priority layer which takes over that, and this one's a little complex. This is the mushroom monster, and because it spawns, it has some interesting spawn effects. So if it goes from the ground up to a mushroom, and then from the mushroom it can pop out of the ground, or and become the mushroom monster. And if you kill it while it's in the ground as a mushroom, it just dies there, and it like goes back under the ground. And then if you kill it as a monster, it does its death effect. So let me move the girl over to show you guys this. Over here, girl. And we're going to take this trunk and disable it so I don't have spiders crawling out of it unexpectedly. So you see, this is a mushroom in the ground. It did like a little spawn there, now it's just chilling. And if you notice, I also disabled the health bar. So it just looks like a mushroom. And I will have mushrooms that look like this. However, this mushroom, if you get close to it, pops out of the ground and starts chasing me, tries to swing at me, can hit me, or not, and I can kill it. And see, it goes through death animation, dies, drops its loot. Awesome. Cool, cool. So I implemented a bunch of little things that I had been sort of putting off. I implemented held item limits, so now you can only hold 25 items in your bag inventory. I have two types of inventory implemented. I have your held items and your home items. You can have infinite items in your home items, but your held items, which are the ones that you have in your bag when you're out in the world, are limited to 25 items. Just go through the list, count those. Pretty simple. I'm sorry if I'm going through this quickly. I just don't want this to be like a 3-hour video because I've been poor at keeping up with them. So there was some bugs in regarding to how monsters were flipping. That was because I had two flip scripts. I had one flip script on the patrol, and I had one flip script on the movement smooth, which is the attack movement. So I took those both off and I put those on to the monster behavior script, since all monsters are gonna have monster behavior. And so like anything that flips aside from the girl is gonna have a monster behavior script on it. So put that on there, and it ended up working much better having them all together. The other thing I added, and which is not playing right now, is sound. And I want to show you how sound works, but I'm going to go to Visual Studio. Right. Yes. So Unity sometimes gets grumpy and doesn't play sound if I've left it open for too long. I'm not really sure. So I'm actually going to open up Visual Studio here and go to the monster attack script, melee, and I'll show you how the sounds work while I restart Unity. Just save and open. So, opening there. You'll notice that I have two public audio clips. These audio clips are going to be on the monster themselves. I am also going to have an audio source, and the audio source I'm going to have to pull in my start here by just doing get component audio source. It's going to grab the component from whatever monster this script is on. And then once I have both of those, since these are already defined, when I do my attacks, all I have to do is do a source.play one shot. That means just play it once, don't repeat it, and then the attack. And that's it. And hopefully now I can show you what that sounds like after switching back over. And that's why this guy has a little icon like that now. So now for here. Now the timing's not actually been set up right yet, but that's fine. Seems like I might have messed up something in his attack script, considering he's not attacking me. That's fine. And he will, of course, actually have a death sound as well. And he dies. Cool. Another thing that I implemented in regards to monster behavior is with the movement smooth, I have implemented both a aggro range and a de-aggro range. So that just involves in the monster movement smooth, which is my aggressive movement, putting on like incorporating a de-aggro range, and then on my stats it says if you've been aggroed, if something's aggressive, and there we go. Just add an additional bool if it's aggressive, and added aggro and de-aggro range. This apparently has a de-aggro range of 0, but it checks its aggressive range as well. So we need to put a de-aggro range of 10. Let me behave a little nicer. All right. One thing that okay, and then that's pretty good for these mushrooms. Let's go over to the spiders. Yo, girl. Heard you like spiders. Before we get to the spiders, let's talk about the environment itself. Previously, I had implemented tiles, and I am using those tiles as well. So if we go to the deep dark forest here, we'll notice that we have all sorts of lovely tiles like this. That's the background tile. And, you know, tiles like this. One of the problems with these tiles I unfortunately have found is that, first of all, this edge collider does not work very well. And if you get pushed into it, you can kind of pop through it sometimes. That might be sort of a fault of my code for how movement works, but if it was a solid collider, it would be fine. However, I didn't want to draw a bunch of circles or whatnot. Another problem with these tiles is I have some effects that should be happening on the ground, and with these bushes being not on the ground and having the effects occur over them, it loses the sense of depth and it looks very strange. Luckily, my artist, when I brought this up to him, provided me with bushes separate from the tiles, so I can now go back over them and put in a sub sprite that's going to be the bush itself, and I can put a collider on that sub sprite. And since I am using prefabs, all of these prefabs will update, and that'll be a quick and easy fix. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I also created a bunch of prefabs that are obstacles. So like logs here. You can say use the polygon collider. That's why the collider is so crazy looking. It's sort of an automatic collider when you put it on. Small log, etc., etc. And I make use of those, as well as additional shrubs. My difference between shrubs and obstacles is shrubs are supposed to be harvestable. Not all of these have their harvesting hooked up to them yet, so they're technically not harvestable. But I'm trying to put them in the right categories, so when that's implemented, they are. So, of course, our thyme bush here, which has gotten a graphic update, is harvestable, and if we go over and play with him, we'll see that it X is expected and drops some time. One of the things which wasn't occurring was potions previously weren't exploding when they hit walls, nor were they exploding at max range, nor were spells doing the same. Actually, spells were exploding when they hit walls, and I had an interesting bug. That bug was caused by the fact that I was turning potions to to kinematic when I threw them. And I wanted them to be kinematic so that when they got hit traveling, they wouldn't sort of fly off into the nether. Great idea and all. However, apparently Unity doesn't support collisions between two kinematic objects. So the potions would run into a monster and explode just fine. But they would go through bushes, they go through any environment obstacles because my environment obstacles are kinematic. So all I had to do is in my script was start it as not kinematic while she was holding it, and when she start it as kinematic while she was holding it. When she throws it, make it non-kinematic, and that's it. And then I think I make it kinematic again when it explodes. So when it is triggered, it becomes kinematic again, so it doesn't like flip around and everything. So start as kinematic while she's holding it and moving around. That way it doesn't get knocked off of her since it's a child of hers. When she throws it, make it non-kinematic, and when it explodes, make it kinematic again so it doesn't get bumped around. Previously, I had implemented, I believe, oh dear. Yeah, I think I had previously implemented the slowing webs. That would be an effect prefab. However, Wesley now upgraded the visuals, so not only does it look really nice, but it's animated, so if you watch, it'll pulse here. And it pulses the same colors as spiders, which I think is super cool. I also changed how the script works a little on them by adding in an immunity. And the immunity is pretty simple. I'll bring you over to the Visual Studio and show you that code. Slow, effect slow. And all I do is make a public list of strings of the immune monsters, and then I just go through the list when this is triggered and make sure that the game object that has triggered the collision doesn't share the name with one of the immune monsters. And this has been working perfectly. I was a little concerned that it might not be working with prefabs as their names change a little, but it seems to work just fine. So yay! And this means spiders are slowed by web, and spiders are not slowed by web, and yet everything else is. In regards to the spells themselves, another thing that I implemented at the request of Wesley is I implemented it so spell projectiles do not have to go straight. They now have a potential arc component. The arc is that value is the highest point it will be above the straight line on the y-axis that it will ever be throughout the arc, and it starts at 0 and goes to 0 across that. That was implemented the same way that I implemented my potions. Let's see, projectile behavior script, which is pretty simple. Since I have a distance that I'm traveling, the max distance that it will travel, I can determine how far along the journey I am by taking the distance and dividing it by the max distance. That's the percentage of the journey, which means I just have to do this lovely little equation here to find the arc height. Of course, I have to store the previous arc height so I can subtract that out before adding the new arc height in, or else it exponentially shoots off the screen. Of course, I didn't implement it that way and then have to fix it. But yeah, so you definitely have to store the previous arc height. And the reason that I'm storing the previous arc height is because I am using an update instead of onFixed update. So that means the previous arc height could be of a range of things versus a known, depending on how fast the frames are. I know a lot of people use fixed update, but I don't see really a huge need behind it yet. So perhaps in the future, but not yet. I also changed how effects work and how monster melee attacks work in regards to dealing damage. Now, instead of directly calling damage on objects, like grabbing their stats and subtracting from it, I created a take damage function. And this function is on both girls and on all monsters as well. And what it does is it uses this very simple formula to calculate how much damage the monster's going to take using its current defense and resistances in regards to what types of attacks it is. So if it's doing 10 base attack and 10 fire attack, like a fire punch or whatever, I can do 10, 5, 0, 0, 0, 0. And then all of this is calculated accordingly. And I do a coroutine that just flashes it red. So previously, I think you remember that I implemented the girl having a separate animation where she was red. And I figured out I could just do that by changing the color on the sprite renderer to red for a second and then goes back to white. So now all monsters and the girl flash red when they take damage. It's pretty cool. It helps. I think it gives a nice feel to the game because you see that they're taking damage. Ooh, lots to do. I was having a slight issue with killing monsters, and before they were dying, I wasn't checking that they were dead or not before doing their melee attacks, because previously when they died, I would just despawn them. Since they now die, like go through a death animation, I had to make sure that I was checking to see whether or not they were dead before calculating attack and casts. Added that in. If you remember adding in buffs and debuffs that I did here, I also threw in a modification that changes the animation speed if the base speed is below the max speed, or if it's different than the max speed. So if you get slowed by the spider web, instead of running along at the same pace but not moving, you actually slow your movements down as much as the spider web is slowing you. Unfortunately, it doesn't show very well on the girl as she doesn't walk right now. She just sort of glides around, but I think she will be walking in the future, and this does work for the mushrooms when they run over the slow area. And actually, let me show you that. I think that's going to be simple enough to show you. So if we take the girl, hey girl, move her back over here and throw down a spider web in front of her. We hit play here. Get this monster to spawn. It's going to run fast, and as you see, he slows down, and then he goes fast again. You see, he slows down, and it definitely looks better than him like running really fast in place. Yeah. Let's nuke this again. Delete. And move the girl back over. Boom. Girl over. Yay! I have to admit, I'm a little sad that I have to go through, that I'm feeling compelled to go through this so fast. I really hate these recordings being super long. Yesterday, though, I did a 6-hour-long stream of all of my development. A lot of this stuff was being implemented during it. I had amazing viewers watching, helping me with my code, talking with me. Whoa, I totally messed that up. And I didn't know that I had to have a checkbox marked on Twitch in order to save the stream. So I lost all 6 hours of the stream, and that really bites because I thought it was a really good stream, and a lot of people seem to really appreciate going through these different things that I was talking about. So let me just talk about a few more things. Another things that I implemented was a Venom Pool. That's not a Venom Pool. For a second I thought I had saved over it. Like, no, please, no. And this Venom Pool has an effect that's a dot. And it uses its strength to tick. I'm going to make this a little actually faster on the ticking. And by tick, I mean it goes through, and anytime it has a trigger, like an object is triggered on it, or an object stays in it, it checks to see if it is currently damage active, and if it is, it applies a dot to it, and then I use a coroutine that I think is really special, and you'll understand why. I use a wait for end of frame. Then I set the damage active to false. Then I wait for the time in between dots, and then I set the damage active to true. Since Unity is a frame-based engine, this means when the damage is true, it'll go through and everything will, if it's within the trigger, start this taking damage thing. If I didn't have wait for end of frame though, the first one that is calculated to take damage would set the damage active to false, and nothing else in the AoE would take damage. However, since I'm waiting for the end of the frame, that means at the end of the frame, after all of them have been calculated, they all try to set damage active to false. Then wait for the dot tick time, and all set the damage active to true. This enables multiple mobs to take damage within one AoE. Whereas if I was just saying the damage active to false whenever one thing took damage, the rest of the things would not. And I'll just show you what this damage tick looks like, even though I'm going to get a spider in my face. Hi, spider. So you'll see I'm ticking even when he's not attacking me, and that's just from being in there. However, I did put the immunity on this, so he's not taking damage, but he does, of course, flash red when he does take damage. And he doesn't have a death animation yet. That is why he turns into a mushroom mob. But you can see here, just taking damage, not. So I thought that was a really cool thing to implement, and it took surprisingly less effort than I was expecting. The other thing that I had really truthfully been putting off, I'm going to turn off all of his casts here, is, no, we want the mouse behavior script on, is that I modified the behavior script to change so that your position on the y-axis is affects your order in the layer. So if we look at the girl here as she's moving around, which would be on her sprite, you'll see that her order in the layer is actually changing dependent on like how high she is on the y-axis. Now this means if I stand below this monster, my hat is covering his foot, and if I'm above him, yet when I'm above him, my feet are behind his butt. And that sort of gives you a sense of depth, which doesn't technically exist. And I'm really proud of this. I think it makes the game feel much, much better. Yeah. Sorry, going through this all extremely quickly. So that's pretty much everything I've implemented. I will be streaming extremely shortly for implementing the stuff that I have to do next. And what I'm going to be doing next is I'm going to take the images that my artist sent me of the bushes and implementing new tiles with their boundaries, and probably I'm putting the bush images on a layer up so that when monsters cast at me when I'm next to bushes, which this one is not. Why are you not? I turned something off on him. Oh, that's the Venom spider. Whoops. Alright, spit at me. Oh, spit at me over here. You see, so that doesn't happen, because having the AoE on top of the bush looks weird. That will allow the AoE to be under the bush, which would be great. I'm going to try to implement exploratory crafting. Of course, I have crafting set up. If you guys remember that, go to my beautiful home menu. And then to my ugly crafting menu. Crafting does work. However, I'm going to be making a new scene for exploratory crafting, and I need to figure out a good UI for picking 3 ingredients which to put into the cauldron at once and to unlock the recipe. So that'll be not it'll be challenging. It'll definitely take more time than a lot of the other implementations. It's something that definitely needs to be done, but isn't going to be the most fun thing to implement. It will have some really good code, so if you are interested in programming for video games, especially using Unity, it is something I highly recommend checking out. There's a few bugs that I really need to address. I have a strange problem where, well, it's not too strange. If you notice here, the icons look great, and that's because they are in a horizontal set and they're allowed to adjust themselves to their preferred height and width. However, I haven't actually figured out how to do that in this window, and so they end up getting kind of squeezed around in ways that I didn't expect. Those are being super small. I have no clue why that's happening. And if I grab time here, the time just looks great here and looks like really wonky. I actually, now that I'm looking about it, I'm thinking that Unity 5 has had some sort of changes to the UI there. Because before, what happened when I opened the time is it would be like tall and squished, and now it's just really small. So yay, exploring Unity 5 UI changes. And after that, I'm just going to be implementing new potions. I've really caught up a bunch of the work that I need to do. We're getting animations in the game. We're getting more monsters. So now it's going to be time to make more potions. I hope that I'm going to use that slowing effect area and maybe with the dot area combined and make like a frost hazard that slows you and deals frost damage. Could be really cool. Fire AoE would be really cool as well. I can just start taking all of these things that I've created previously and modifying them or making new ones. So with the dot, it only deals base damage right now, but it should, actually no, I lied. It deals nature damage right now, but I might want to change that so it can take in multiple inputs and it'll do a different type of damage. All things to think about, or I might just have a fire dot, blah 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 dot, etc. etc. That depends on implementation on the spell, but all of that detail will be gotten to later. And before I leave, let me just show you what this level kind of is like with everything in it. So this guy, oh, I disabled everything. Ha ha ha! Oh, ow! I just hit myself. So this is the poison one. Oh no! Oh, yeah, the poison spell killed him. Let's see if we can drag him through. No! Yeah, fire at me, fire at me, fire at me. Yes, kill him. Yes! Look at that. So monsters have much lower life than Luna. So this doesn't hurt me nearly as much as it hurts them. Those mushroom mobs are pretty low HP. I can generally kill them with one hit. Oh no! I forgot I had a spider spawner over there. I'm gonna grab some things. And I'll zip away from these. So this is definitely really kind of feeling more like I was expecting the game to. And I didn't really change anything. At least I don't feel like I did. So just a new level design and a little more modifications on how monsters behave and putting some harder monsters in. So I'm really happy with the progress of the game, and thanks for watching. I will super promise I'll make the next video sooner. Tune in to my Twitch stream or subscribe if you're interested in listening to that. I'll put links below. Oh, and I have created forums. So if you want to give your feedback on the development process, on how I do these videos, or on the game itself, please go to the forum and post a thread. I will be watching that thing like a hawk, as well as the rest of my team. If you have questions on art or anything like that, please go ahead and post, and we will get to you. So thanks, and thanks for watching.